Hey everybody, welcome to my messy room. Today I am going to do Game of Thrones episode 9 review, and this one is called Baelor. And the first scene we get is Ned, and we get a bit of Barry's history. I don't know if that's important, but then Ned gets information about Robb's army, and you know, Varys is trying to get Ned to take back what he said about Joffrey, be the easiest way to keep, Ned's life and, just make everything easier. It's like the easy way out, just to say that Joffrey is really the true-born heir and whatnot. And Ned refuses to do so. He doesn't want to dishonor himself. He doesn't want to lie, and he thinks that this is the honorable way to make sure everyone knows that Joffrey is really a bastard, and Cersei didn't mother any of Robert's true sons, and that Stannis should be the next in line, because some people want Renly to be next in line, and he's willing to die for this because this is the honorable way. This is what Ned Stark believes, and this is just Ned being Ned. It's just what he does. He's not afraid to die, and what Varys leaves him with is like, okay, there's your life, but what about your daughter's life? And then this is the beginning of this theme that we have, especially in this episode, duty and honor versus love. And I always thought of it like they're both honorable, like honor to your family and honor to, I guess, your job or your calling. But I guess the way they put it is more like duty and honor versus love. I think both are honorable and do have their own types of honor. So, whatever. But that's the way they put it in this episode. And for the Robb scenes, we have Catelyn actually following Robb, and I honestly don't think Catelyn needs to be Robb's shadow. While I'm sure she is smart and can put some insight into Robb's life and can be of some use, I think she'll be of even more use to her littler sons. Rickon and Bran both feel abandoned. We've gotten scenes of both of them expressing their abandonment, and now they have no Ned, they have no Robb, and Catelyn, Ned and Robb can't go anywhere. There's no way either one of them can come back to their brothers. Well, Robb can technically, but he's choosing war instead. And then we have Catelyn, who is the only one who can go back to Robb and, to Rickon and Bran. And she doesn't. She stays shadowing Robb, and from what we've seen, Robb has been able to win the hearts of his men without Catelyn, and the only thing Catelyn really did was talk to Lord Frey, but I honestly think anybody else could have done the same thing. But anyways, so while we're following Robb, Catelyn does talk to Lord Frey, and Lord Frey is a very curious man. He feels like he gets the worst end of everything. Obviously, people don't like him because he was kind of late to the rest of to the battle, and he's like late to when there's conflicts, and someone calls him because he's the bannerman of the River Lord, which I think are the Tullys. Yeah, he doesn't come right when they call him. He comes when he knows which way the battle's turning, and no one can really blame, well, they can blame him, but nobody can really sit there and get on his bad side because he holds such a key position by the river where, he's the only way over. So nobody really wants to piss him off, but instead they just kind of treat him like the cousin nobody likes, and they just give him like the worst, and they never come to his weddings. They never have a great warmth for him, and he knows this, and that's why he doesn't really like to choose sides, because he's like, I don't know anybody anything. They don't treat me any love, so why should I help either of them, or whatever conflict. He doesn't feel like he should take sides regardless. And so later we do find out that he granted the crossing because he has that key hold over the bridge that goes over the river, and But Rob has to take on one of his sons as a squire, very high honor for his son, and Arya has to marry one of his sons as well, and Rob has to marry a daughter. And those are kind of high stakes. Arya, she was going to get married off to some lord regardless. The lords, however, have more of a, I guess, more of a choosing, since they're the higher on, I guess they're the ones inheriting the house, they're the ones inheriting whatever. Um, they get more of a choice because they can decide, well, your daughter will only give me access to this, this, and this, and your daughter will give me access to this, this, and this. And the lords have more of a choice. But he decides, okay, I can deal with this deal, and I am going to, just go on with it. I'll marry his daughter, I'll marry Arya off, whatever. And later on, Rob captures Jaime in a key battle, and this is very, very important because, like I said, when Tyrion got released, they no longer had any hold to kind of trade off Ned and the girls for Tyrion. There was no longer a trade-off. Now we have, or Rob has Jaime, and now they do have a kind of exchange that they can make. And I like this scene because everyone's excited, they won the battle or whatever, but Ned is so like his father, and he goes up there and he's like, look, we won a battle, but we didn't win the war. And it's just one of those kind of short speeches, but I liked it a lot. And then later we get Jon, and we get this key scene where Mormont, commander of the Night's Watch, gives Jon Longclaw. And it used to be a bear pommel, now it's a direwolf, and he actually gives him the sword of his house. Like Ned has ice, and that's the sword of House Stark. This Longclaw is the house of or the sword for House Mormont. And so he gives it to Jon, and the only reason I'm kind of like, what the hell, is because we never got that relationship between Jon and Mormont. We never got that father-son kind of a relationship between them. We didn't see a lot of scenes with them together, and we never got that connection. So now he's giving Jon a sword that would have gone to his true-born son, which we find out was Jorah, by the way. And you feel like that's something you'd give a son, or someone you considered close enough to be a son, yet we didn't get that connection. So I guess the closest we can relate it to is that Mormont is placing a huge responsibility and huge trust in Jon. Yes, he saved his life, but I don't think that's enough to, give your family sword to. It has to be someone you're going to trust and, give responsibilities to like you would a son. So it's very important. It symbolizes a lot. And, Jon's getting praised for the white kill. Did I say wildling instead of white earlier? Anyways, he gets praised for killing that white. And it's kind of like a zombie type of thing. And Jon finds out that Rob went to war, and he really wants to be with him. And then the next scene, we hear Jon talking to Aemon about that key element in this episode, which is duty and honor versus love. And Jon's very conflicted. He loves his brother, he wants to be with him, but he took the oath of the Night's Watch, and he has to live with that. He has to stay at his station, or he'll suffer death. And I'm pretty sure if Rob's anything like his father, I'm wondering if Jon went to Rob, if Rob would have to behead him, because Rob is his father's son. I wonder if that would be really interesting actually to find out. But what else do we have? Oh yeah, so Jon's talking to Maester Aemon, and we actually find out Aemon is a Targaryen, and he went through the same thing Jon did, because Aemon had to hear about the total, I guess, genocide of his house. And, they killed the children, they killed, his brothers, his uncles, his cousins, his everything. And, It's just one of those things. And so, you know, basically Eamon says it's up to you, and that's what we're left with Jon, is he has to decide for himself. Okay. Next we have Daenerys, and Khal Drogo falls from his horse in this scene, and we find out, just like what we've been given throughout the show, is, you know, the horse means everything to them. They worship the horse, they live off of the horse. The horse is just everything to these people, and so a man who cannot ride a horse is no man at all, especially if he's a Khal. He's no longer fit to lead if he can't ride a horse. And Daenerys sees that Drogo's super, super sick. She's doing everything she can for him, and she begs Mirri Maz Dur to do a spell to bring him back to her and give him life, because he's just gonna die. His fate is sealed. And she agrees to do the spell, but, you know, and she has to give a life in order to gain a life. So Mirri Maz Dur asks for a horse, or Khal Drogo's horse, and then the spell begins, and everyone's already, you know, in turmoil. They know Khal Drogo's dying. They saw him fall off the horse, and so they're splitting up, they're dispersing, they're having arguments, they're going their separate ways, whatever. And then Dany, I think she starts going into labor, and Jorah has to bring her into the tent where Mirri Maz Dur is having the spell. And that's where we get left off, and that's just a scary, scary scene, because you hear all these screams or whatever. I don't know, I think that scene's kind of scary. But then again, I get scared really easily. And we also have Tyrion, my man Tyrion. I love Tyrion. And Tyrion, you know, he's just with his father, following them around, and they're making battle plans. And Tywin actually puts Tyrion and his little hill tribe members on the vanguard, which is, I'm guessing, the front lines. And it just, I don't know. We know that even though Tywin really has no true love for, like, any of his family, like, I don't see any, like, fatherly affection. I think he does, you know, love Jaime in a way. Like, he has plans for him. He loves Cersei. I mean, she made it far. She married a king. You know, she's given them access to the kingdom, basically, through Cersei. And Tyrion, he just sends him and his tribes to the front lines. And this is just one of the things that we see where, like, Tywin really has no love for Tyrion, and it just, it's kind of sad. I really, in the books, you see Tywin has less love for Tyrion. It's quite obvious how much he dislikes Tyrion, but in the show it's not that obvious. But I think this action Tywin took should show it a lot more. And then we meet Shay, who is Tyrion's whore, who, like, he actually wants her, like, around all the time. Kind of like he hired Braum to be his, like, all-around protector. He's hiring Shay to be, like, his all-around whore. And later on, we have them exchanging stories, and Tyrion talks about his first wife, Tisha. I'll call her Tisha. And it's such a sad story. Like, this is, I don't know, I fell in love with Tyrion the first time we met him, when he was talking to Jon, but this story just, like, I don't know, I think it's so sad, and, like, it's so horrible. And then we get another clue of what Tywin has done to Tyrion that makes you think, like, Tywin really does not like his son Tyrion. And if you watch my Tywin equals a Targaryen video, you'll see more on this. But there's a lot of spoilers from the books in those ones, in that one, from book 1 to the current one. So check it out if you've read the books. But anyways, I can't believe Tywin did this. Like, I guess Jaime was being nice, wanted Tyrion to have love, or, you know, get laid, something. But then, since they got married, Tywin actually, like, you know, had her, I guess, raped, and then they didn't mention this, but in the book version, Tyrion went last, and while the other soldiers paid with a silver, Tyrion paid with gold. Obviously, he's a Lannister. I don't know, I just think that was a really sick story, and it really says a lot about his father Tywin and Tyrion's relationship. No wonder they don't really have love for each other. And when he gets ready for the battle or whatever, he gets knocked out and then wakes up after. And I don't know if this happens in the book, but I hate those scenes where, you know, you're like, yeah, battle's coming, I'm gonna see some sick scenes, or read, depending on what version, and you know, the character just gets knocked out and you miss the whole entire battle. That sucks so bad. And then this I love, because in the previous scene where we find out Robert, previous episode when we find out Robert tells a scout that they have 20,000 men going after Tywin, we find out that he really only sent 2,000 men, and while like they did sacrifice their lives basically because, you know, Tywin is going to have his whole army there, and Robb only sent 2,000. It is a sacrifice, it is a sad sacrifice, but I guess it was a pretty tight battle strategy. You know, Tywin and everyone's expecting 20,000 men and they only get 2, and that probably also saved Tyrion from getting slaughtered. But, you know, Robb basically tricked him, and that's when Robb captured Jaime, because everyone was distracted somewhere else, and Robert was able to capture Jaime. But the last scene is the most memorable, and it's an Arya scene. And Ned is brought before the people, and when Ned is being brought out, he sees Yoren, and he's all, Baelor! And we see Arya is on the statue of Baelor, watching what's going on. And then we have Ned confess everything, even though he said he was willing to die to keep his honor, and say that Joffrey was really not the true heir and everything. What Varys said at the end there, what about your daughter's life, meant everything. And we see here Ned, you know, the most honorable character ever, is willing to dishonor himself for the love of his daughter and his family. And he confesses everything. And then we have our little bastard Joffrey, who, you know, he's like, you know, I was going to show mercy, send him to the wall, but you know what? Off with his head. And I seriously cried my eyes out, like I do every single time I read the book, and now I did it when I watched the show, and Ned gets his head chopped off, or at least it ends with, you know, the sword coming down on his head. I don't know. And then Joffrey's a little bastard. I don't know if they, like, Cersei heard the news that Jaime was captured yet, but if they did, Joffrey's a little dumbass. Like, if they knew Jaime was captured, Joffrey's a dumbass. But they might not know. They didn't mention it in the show, and I cannot recall the books on this matter, which is why I'm rereading them. But anyways, let's see here. That's all I have, so thank you for your time. Bye. Okay, I'll just